The guy came into the store and I'm at the register and he had like 8 assistants and they're all putting things at the counter. And I said, wait a minute, what do you do? This is not normal. Please teach me what you do. You don't have to pay me. Just help me get from behind this cash register, please.
So today we answer the age-old question of what do Steve Harvey, Drew Barrymore, and Craigslist have in common? They all contributed to the success of Mikel Welch in a major way. Mikel's an amazingly talented, driven person, relentless faith, not give-up-edness, if that's a word, a deep belief in self, just an honest, pure belief that if he just follows his inner voice, he will achieve whatever it is he is meant to achieve. He moved to New York City with nothing but a miniature schnauzer, a borrowed sofa, and an amount of faith that would terrify most of us. Overnight shifts, Craigslist clients, set decorating for the chance at one open door. From Legos in Detroit to green rooms for Michelle Obama, Mikel's journey proves a simple truth. Authenticity, even when it's uncomfortable, is the thing that gets you noticed. I've got Mikel Welch here with me, who I'm honored to have, TV personality, influencer, designer extraordinaire. Thank you so much for being here. First of all, I'm
thank
really
you
excited.
for the kind words, and I'm excited to be here.
You know, you've had so many amazing shows in your relationship with Drew Barrymore and Michelle Obama and this long list of amazing people. And I want to get to that in a little bit, but maybe we're going to jump back in time.
Okay.
Starting in the beginning, growing up in Detroit.
Yes.
I found it really interesting. I read a little bit about your parents and what their vocations were, which really obviously resonates to who you are today. So maybe tell me a little bit about your parents, what they did, and how that sort of started you on a course to ultimately getting here.
Absolutely. So interestingly enough, my mother was a journalist. So she did the traffic and weather on the radio my entire, elementary up to high school life, as well as had a local talk show in the city of Detroit. My dad later in life became a minister. So I guess everyone in that sense was not afraid to, be in front of the public eye, if you will. Never thought I would end up being there, but I think it was one of those innate things that was just kind of in me that just later revealed itself, if you will.
And it sounded like, you described in something I read, your family created this environment of like imagination and creativity. Speak to that. Like, what was that like? And I think you have 3 siblings, growing up in Detroit with parents with probably, I'd imagine, big personalities because of what they did. It had to have been, and you have a huge personality. Like, it's got to come from all of that. Share a little bit about what the little home environment was like as a child.
Honestly, I grew up in a, normal middle class family. We stayed about 20 minutes outside of Detroit. Creativity was something that was stressed at an early age. I think me, my brother, and my sister, we all played instruments, or we were, encouraged to play some type of sport. They encouraged me to play baseball, but I wasn't great at it. But
what instrument was your instrument?
I played the clarinet. You want to know the honest reason why I played that clarinet? Because you got gym credit if you were in the marching band. So I'm like, okay, if I can march in the band, I don't have to take gym. So that's how the clarinet came about.
Young kids with orchestral instruments can be frightening. Well, my kids played for a year or so, very, traditional instruments. And boy, when they'd hit certain notes, our dog would just kick his head back and howl.
Oh my gosh. And don't even think about that little plastic recorder that you learn how to play on. It's like, forget it.
So you came from an environment, your parents were encouraging that stuff. What about, I've read a little bit about Legos was like a big sort of, you started to use your imagination that maybe relates to today.
So, as a kid, my imagination was just out of the roof. And so I asked my parents if they could just build me a city out of Legos. And they're like, okay, no, we're going to give you some Legos and you go for it. And that became me at an early age, just building little houses. Then I'm like, oh, they need furniture. And so I was slowly beginning to, build my version of interior design. I just didn't know what it was called.
Right. So, young people really finding that thing inside themselves that gets them excited.
Yes.
The whole little cliche, if you love what you do, never work a day in your life, right?
Yep.
It sounds like the Lego experience was, with the benefit of hindsight. How did that start to manifest as you got a little bit older?
So I graduated from Morehouse College in Atlanta,
Right.
had a degree in marketing, and I felt like I went to college because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So now I have this degree. I don't know what in the heck to do with it because I don't want to work in a marketing office. And I remembered saying to myself, okay, you like clothes, go work at Bloomingdale's. It had just come to Atlanta and just kind of maybe become a buyer, figure it out. While I was on a lunch break, honestly, it was like a scene out of a movie. I will never forget this. I took a lunch break and I spent 40 of my 45-minute break in Crate and Barrel. And when I looked up at the clock, I only had 5 minutes left on the break. So I'm like, oh, shoot, I can't eat. And it was this montage playing in my head of wait a minute. You have all these magazines stacked up about design. You've been purchasing all these accessories. You don't have clients. They're just sitting in a closet. And that was my aha moment that, wait a minute, you need to lean into this. And my mom told me early on, when I was trying to figure out life, she said, find something that you be willing to do for free. And that's something that you'll know is your passion. And it was like the light bulb went off instantly.
Some of the most significant moments for Mikel happened at unexpected times. That 40-minute detour into Crate and Barrel wasn't just an epiphany, it was an interruption, a moment that forced him to confront what he already knew. He didn't need another job, he needed direction. And for the first time, he let that instinct pull him forward.
I'm crazy. So that very next day, I went to go work for a furniture company called Storehouse. I worked in their logistics warehouse. I was a coordinator. I love Nate Berkus now, but I always had to send products to his team for photo shoots. And I said, I don't want to be the one boxing it. I want to be the one designing it. And I ended up going on Craigslist. And there was a gentleman looking for a design assistant. And I applied, got the job, worked for him for a year. And it was just the two of us. And anytime it's just you and one other person, you soak in so much because you are their everything.
Right.
So after a year, I said, I don't know that I necessarily need to work with him. I think I can do it on my own. So I went on Craigslist myself and I posted an ad where I would design one room for free as long as people paid for the furniture. And I was using my marketing degree then. I'm like, This is how you build a portfolio. So I did that for a year and I had about 5 or 6 projects. And I said, this wasn't enough. I said, I want an office in New York, LA, Miami, da-da-da-da-da. So I posted that same ad and I said, wherever you get the most hits, that's where you're going to move to. Of course, you post a hit in New York, you're going to get flooded, which I didn't know. So I ended up moving to New York 2 months later.
So now you're starting to make this move toward New York. I mean, that's pretty bold, right?
It was bold.
Tell me about that, the courage to just go to this other place.
So that was crazy. I mean, it was like God aligned all the stars. I had a friend who had an apartment. Her roommate had just moved out. And so she said, hey, you can crash on the sofa, but I'm looking for a new roommate. So don't keep the living room a mess type of thing. And I said, well, what if I take the room? And she's like, oh, immediately do it. And I felt like, okay, this is the only time you'll ever get to just move to New York. So packed up with my dog and $500 like a crazy person. And I got a part-time job at the Container Store on 59th and Lexington. My job was to do the unload, like the overnight truck from 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. And on that job, I ended up meeting who is now my mentor. And she said, hey, someone told me you're trying to break into design. I'm working on an interior designer show house. You should come and help me as an assistant. I had no idea what an interior design show house was.
Right.
But I do know when I walked in there, these people had $30,000 rugs and $800 trash receptacles. And it was the craziest thing I had ever been exposed to. But that, Jillian is her name. Jillian changed my life. The exposure she gave me, and I will never forget. She said,
Browder?
Jillian Browder. She said, you will do a show house of your own one day. I've done 8 now.
I would definitely want to get to that. How did you discover her? She, you? How did that? And by the way, what kind of dog?
A miniature schnauzer.
I think that dog's in the book.
Yes, the dog is in the book.
And more seriously, how did you two connect?
That was just honestly me running my mouth to my other coworkers, because when I just moved to New York, you're excited, you're in a new city, you just want to tell everybody, what you're everybody's like, what did you move for? What did you move for? And so a friend of mine at work said, well, Jillian's an interior designer. You two need to meet. And I'm like, oh, okay. And Jillian is like, she's such a New Yorker. We're on the elevator together and she's not even looking at me. She's like, hey, you want to work on the job next week? I'm like, oh, sure. And it was just, that was really the short of it. That's what I love about New York. New Yorkers will give you a shot and a chance.
Right.
And she took a chance on me and it turned into just like a wonderful working relationship.
Well, I want to pick up on that, but I want to go back one more thing you said, that the first job you took in New York, working like late hours loading trucks.
Yeah, at the Container Store.
Like, where did that work ethic come from? Is that something was ingrained from your parents? Was it just you had this drive and willing to do anything for it? How do you think about that? I mean, not everybody, but part of success is being willing just to put it out there. Even the hard, dirty stuff, like where did that come from for you?
You know what? Probably my dad, because he's that way. Like my grandfather, they always have 8 different businesses running. But I honestly don't have a real answer. Like, it's just something that's in me. Yeah. I'm always doing 5 things. Like you and I just talked. I'm literally leaving here to go get ready to go on the Today Show. So it's like, I don't have an off switch. Right. And so I'm always going for whatever the next thing is on my bucket list. You have to put in the work. And that's something that I tell people all the time. I've done so many projects for free, not to encourage that, but I've often found that people are more apt to let you in to try things when you're not asking anything of them. They're more apt to get you in the door, and then you can ask for money.
Right, and then the handoff is made, and then it's what you do with it. And you want to put it out there, and people see that, and now you make it impossible for them to not keep you.
Exactly.
I'm really curious, when you're more the younger guy at that earlier phase, after a while you become famous yourself, but in the early days, you've got to be a little awestruck. Like, where were you in your headspace, and what was that like?
That was interesting, because at that point I'm watching like Sheila Bridges and Billy Siglia, all these big New York names, Jamie Drake, all of these people. And I'm just mesmerized by like who they are, how they're able to turn out the plethora of projects and the caliber of projects. I'm sitting over here still on Craigslist working off of, IKEA West Elm type budgets. Yeah. So it was a very humbling, but at the same time, inspiring time, because I just had aspiration to be just like every single one of them. And I just knew I had to fight until I got it.
And I mean, like at that point, you're early in your career, you've entered the big league.
Yeah. You know what? Things spiraled for me. So I was working with a Jewish developer in Brooklyn, and they hired me to work on a few projects, and they had multiple projects, and I was working on them, and I failed on one of them. And they fired me. And it was the most depressing thing ever, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm throwing it all out the window. I'm going to have to go back, to Crate and Barrel. But a friend of mine said, you got to get up and get a job. Like, you cannot sit here like this. So I ended up going to CB2 Furniture, work with them for 2 years. And a guy came into the store, and I'm at the register, and he had like 8 assistants, and they're all putting things at the counter. And I said, wait a minute, what do you do? This is not normal. Please teach me what you do. You don't have to pay me. Just help me get from behind this cash register, please. And he was a set decorator for Dexter on Showtime, was shooting one scene. And he said, if you ever come to LA, call me and I will get you as a set decorator on the show. So, of course, you already know what I did. You already know. I went to my boss and I said, I need you to transfer me to the LA store. Of course, blow the man up, never answers the phone. But I'm like, okay, God has me here for a reason, and I'm going to see it through. And anyone who came into that showroom who looked like they were shopping for someone other than themselves, I would ask, like, can I just shadow you? And within the course of a month, I got a job with Teen Vogue, HGTV. There was another production I can't remember now. But it was just crazy because I had this decent resume for my projects and now TV projects within like a 60-day time period. And that's when I ended up getting a call back in New York for a show called Jerseylicious. And they asked me to be a set decorator. And don't ask me how I got the job, but I did. And I worked really hard on that show. And a coworker says, hey, there's something on Craigslist for this show. On. Yes, called Design Star. You should audition for it. And I'm like, I know Design Star. So auditioned, and I ended up getting cast on season 7.
There's so many great gems in what you just said. One of them I just want to, again, hit that pause button is the fearlessness of, this person and the curiosity. The person comes to your register, the guy at Dexter show.
Yeah.
And even if that didn't pan out, but you just kept going. But just in that moment to have the guts to say, excuse me, sir, this is not normal. What I'm seeing here, tell me, like, just to have the self-awareness that something different is happening here, to have the guts to ask about it, have the curiosity to ask about it, and then to go do it. It's a little nuts, like in a great way. There's a lot there.
I'm not wired completely correct. I'm telling you, I'm a little off. Don't grow up and be like me because
Well, maybe people should grow up and be like you, but just take some risks.
Yes. Don't take me to Vegas. Your money will be gone.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. So, I mean, what a transition through that. You are back in New York now.
So now I'm back in New York to be a set decorator on Jerseylicious. And I worked on the show for a year. What was interesting is my executive director said, I like you a lot. Don't want you to leave because, once shows are done for the summer, you go work elsewhere into the next gig. And she says, just stay here in LA or go back to LA and just work in accounting. She's like, you got a marketing degree. You can
accounting?
Work. Oh, but it was the best thing ever because I learned how much everybody made. So I knew it was, that was
so
the
now
best.
You're even more hungry.
Oh, exactly. So now I know what I should be asking for. But anyhow, I ended up auditioning for this Design Star show, get cast for HGTV. I came in 4th place. And after I came off of the show, my Jerseylicious boss called me and said, hey, want to offer you your job back, but also get ready. We're going to Chicago to shoot the Steve Harvey show. And I want you to come on as a set decorator.
So each of these triumphs, I mean, even getting cast, for example.
Yeah.
Go back to that place in your head. Like, what was that like, again, as a young person in that scary, exciting, a little bit of everything?
It was nerve-wracking just because one, like, I didn't want to let myself down. I didn't want to let my parents down. And my parents were not very excited about me going to New York without a plan. They're like, we spent all this money and now you're working in retail. Like, what are you doing? And I was really nervous, but I learned a lot in that time period. And I was really fearless. I had that because at that point, I think when you're poor, because I was poor, because my parents told me not to go to New York and they didn't want to help me. And so I'm like, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm not calling home asking for anything. And when you're desperate, it makes you hungry.
Hunger, desperation, fear. These aren't weaknesses. They're fuel. And for Mikel, they became the accelerant. From the first moment you spend with Mikel, he has a positive energy. He has a warm smile that's effervescent. He's got a goodness to him. One of the lessons today is listen to that inner voice. In his case, that inner voice is faith in a religious sense, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a religious person to listen to that voice. The key is to commit to it. You may have an awareness, but do you do something about it? Do you recognize it? And then finally, do you actually take action and do something about it and let it leave your mind and convert into movement and action? One thing I'm curious about some of the fear you talked about, a lot of people experience this, and at this still earlier phase in your career, you're starting to get successful and recognized maybe a bit, but people often suffer from a little bit of this imposter syndrome, like this feeling like, and you were touching on it, that's why I'm asking this, is like, I'm not good enough. People are going to figure me out somehow. Was that part of where your headspace was back then?
It was a little bit of that because I'm up against like set decorators who've been doing this for years. I've been doing it for months. And I can't draw, I can't sketch, but I can use PowerPoint at that time before Canva came along. And I'm like, I can create the decks on paper and I'm fast. And that's one thing that I had to learn to be really fast in set decorating. And so I just kind of used that as a benefit. But I did have a lot of self-doubt because I was not classically trained to be an interior designer per se. But I didn't let that hold me back. I kind of used it as a tool to kind of say, you know what? I may not be, but I can still do it better than you.
Where did that eye come from? I mean, because it's an eye you build over time, I assume. Where is that? Is that just something in you? You sort of have an eye for aesthetic and balance?
That's in you. I'm just going to say it's a God-given talent. Yeah. Like right now, I can close my eyes and envision this room looking completely different. I cannot explain to you why I have that gift. And it's kind of scary. It's not like you train to get the gift. It's like, am I ever going to lose this? I don't know.
Do you drive yourself crazy when you enter spaces that you're like,
No.
That doesn't happen?
Don't. As a matter of fact, because people all say, oh, don't judge me when you come in my house. I don't, because then I'd be working. So I do have an off and on switch.
You do have an off button in that regard. Maybe not the motor, but that has the
I do have an off and on switch. I do.
All right, so going back now, you're back into our timeline. You're now part of the Steve Harvey Show.
That was an interesting job because at the time, my Design Star HGTV episodes were airing when I started the job. And I had to move to Chicago. And to be honest, I didn't want to take the job because I was one of those New York people. Like, I only like New York. I don't want to go.
So at this point, you're a New Yorker now.
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker. I'm not going to Chicago. That's like, why go to Diet Pepsi when I can have Pepsi? I was just like annoyed at this point. But on the very first day, we're sitting in our boardroom meeting and there are about 50 of us. And people are sitting, standing just everywhere. And Steve Harvey's manager says to me, you're that guy who painted that room green last night on Design Star and they sent you home. And he says it's this packed boardroom. And I'm like, oh my God, mortified. And I'm just like, okay. And so he's like, I want to see you after the meeting. And I said, okay. So
you're going to the principal's office now.
Exactly. So we get out of the meeting. He said, listen, Steve Harvey, he needs his office redesigned. And I need you to do it. Just don't paint it that same green color you painted last night. And he literally opens up the door and I'm standing in front of Steve Harvey for the first time. And he's like, tell him what you do. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm a set designer, interior design. He's like, I know they told me that you can design. He's like, I just need you to make it look masculine and smoky. You got 1 week. I got to go film Family Feud. And when I come back, I just want it done. He came back a week later, asked his whole entourage to wait outside. I walk him around the room, show him everything that I did. And then he got ready to thank me. And as I was walking out of the door, I looked at him and said, God is telling me to tell you, I don't want to work for you. And it was one of the most shocking things I could have ever said to him, but the best thing ever. And he turned around and he looked at me. He said, what did you just say? I said, listen, I'm not enamored by who you are. I honestly think God has blessed you with a show and a gift, and I'll have it one day. And he looked at me for a second, and then he said, young man, no one's ever spoke to me like that. I'm thinking I'm about to get fired at this point. And he said, but I like it. And he said, you're crazy. And I'm going to put your crazy self on television. And that very next week, there was an audience member who was complaining about her husband playing video games in the bedroom. He said, do you have a basement? And she said, yes. And I'm in the back, headset on, working. Mikel, get out here. I'm like, the show is going on. What are we doing? And I get out there on the stage, like the whole stage is looking at me. And he's like, you're going to her house and we're going to film it.
And that was spontaneous. Like you didn't know that was going to happen.
Didn't know.
Wow. So you're obviously a spiritual person.
Very
and have
much
you been
so.
your whole life? Or is that
Very
something later?
much so.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big part of your journey, which is amazing.
That is a big part of it. But that one thing changed my life.
Have you always been in touch with that part of yourself? Like that moment where you said something out loud that you may have, it been, it's an internal thing. What gave you that's what you were directed to do. That's what you did.
I'm going to sound crazy to people listening, but that wasn't me talking. In that moment, that was not me talking. After I said it, it was me. I was like, oh shoot, what did I just say? But it just came out and I said the words, but even to this day, I don't know. It just came out.
A lot of young people who don't really have a spiritual side to their life, and to be a complete person, it's really, really important. I mean, that's amazing. So he calls you out on TV. Just you don't expect it. Get out here, Mikel.
Yeah, get out here.
And
my producer, she's like, I guess you're going to this woman's house. So shortly after that, we began having situations where there's a hole, we call a hole on the board. So empty segment, somebody can't come in, and they would constantly put me into a segment. And I would always be kind of like their catch-all. So by the end of the year, I have like 12 segments. And it was just adding up, and then it started growing and growing. And so I was just like, okay, what do I do with this? I needed bigger projects. I'm like, these Craigslist projects are not cutting it. I don't have time. And so when we were on the Steve Harvey Show, they didn't give us a budget for green room. Our green rooms looked like they were from 1973. And Steve Harvey wanted them dressed nicely, but production didn't have the budget. So I exposed to production, if you give me $10,000, as long as I return it, I hate saying that out loud, but if I return the items Is it all good? And they're like, yeah. So I used to go shop for furniture, set it up in the rooms for, Michelle Obama, Kathy Lee, and Hoda. There's so many celebs that came through, Halle Berry. And I would make these green rooms and I would hire my photographer to come in and take pictures because now I had a stronger portfolio and I would return those items at night. And then I was just like, okay, what am I going to do with this? So I ended up hiring a publicist. And I was so broke with that publicist because I was barely making enough to pay her. But she got me a lot of articles in New York. And then she got me into my first show house, which was the Lake Forest Show House in Chicago. And the room that I got was John Hughes, like Home Alone, 16 Candles, Ferris Bueller. It was his office. And I got to design an actual office where he wrote Home Alone. Wow. And that, again, just opened my world up. I got my first high-end client because of that show house.
Wow. So is this moment that you're describing as where you started to experience more, I'd say, financial commercial success?
Yes.
In this moment when you're picking up bigger projects?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Because it put me in front of people with a larger disposable income. And, that client bought a $30,000 sofa. So my world had changed drastically. And then that one client referred me to like 7 other of her clients. And then I got addicted to show houses. And that's what helped kind of grow.
And so at that point, you're starting to design homes.
Yes. And that's when I also knew I have to take design serious for the design community to take me serious. And that's when I really got addicted to show houses because I told myself, if you can get into a show house, one, that imposter syndrome, you got to let it go. And then what's even harder is once you get in the door, now you've really got to bring it. But I'm proud of myself. I mean, I've done Kips Bay twice and I made this latest Kips Bay book for top 50 rooms. So I made it.
Steve Harvey opened the door. HGTV Design Star gave him visibility. For Mikel, it's really about the people he's encountered along his career, along his journey, and he's willing always to put it out there, not expect compensation because he just cares. There's a purity to that. And I think people along the way, they just have always seen something in him. I think probably because of that relentless commitment and that purity. And because of that, he's taken a little something from each of them, but what came next would become the platform that defined Mikel's career. Tell me about the relationship with Drew Barrymore. You seem to have such a cool relationship together. Tell me a little bit about how you first met and what is the nature of your relationship. You just seem to have this really neat connection together.
The Steve Harvey Show is honestly the link to everything that I've kind of had thus far. So when the Steve Harvey Show ended, it was sad, but all my producers went everywhere. So I have producers who work on Kelly Clarkson, Jennifer Hudson, Tamron Hall, you name it. Well, my producer called me and said, hey, we're doing the Drew Barrymore Show. Would you like to come on and do an episode? So I came on, did a couple of episodes, and then Drew pulled me to the side. She's like, hey, I like how this relationship is going. Would you like to keep it going? I'm like, who's going to tell Drew Barrymore no? So now 6 years later, I'm the lead design expert on the Drew Barrymore Show, and I do a majority of the home makeovers for the lucky families.
That's amazing.
That show is like a family knit show. So, I can text her. I'll go to her family's house for parties. I've been to her birthday party, which is pretty amazing. You open up the door and you see Gayle King and Savannah Guthrie and all these people, and you have to you have to kind of pull yourself together. But no, I love Drew. She actually came to me in my dressing room and said, hey, heard you're writing a new book. If you don't have anyone writing the forward, I'll write it for you. So she's literally what you see is what you get with her.
That's amazing. Success opened doors, but Mikel wanted to give something back. Enter his book, The Forever Home.
It was an uphill battle, I'm not going to lie. I, in my interior design head, wanted this Rizzoli style book that you just flip through with beautiful pictures. That's just the interior designer in me.
Right.
And when I got with Penguin Random House, their format is different. It needs to be informative. It needs to be tangible tips that people can actually apply. And so the book honestly became all of the little snippets that I've learned from television because we don't have huge budgets, contrary to popular belief. but all of the things that I learned in order to pull off these, sets on a budget, I want to show people how they can do that at home. So I work really hard to provide as many diagrams as possible that will just set people up for success. I'm not a gatekeeper. So at the end of the book, I list all of my resources, and not just like a little fake list I made. I like literally listed every single store. I put people's names, like ask for John, ask for Melissa. So I was taught early on, going back to Steve Harvey's manager, Rashawn McDonald. I remember when I was trying to start out with design or wanted a television show, I was trying to sell different products. And he said, why do you want to sell it? And I said, I want to make money. And he told me, get out of my office, you don't get it. And when I came back, I had another idea about helping people. And he said, that'll work. He said, no matter what you do, if it's only about the money, it'll never work. It's always got to be about what you can give back to someone else. And that's what this book is, a give back.
I want to, again, hit the pause button on that. I mean,
yeah.
What I'm realizing through the great people I've gotten to talk to so far through this podcast is authenticity.
Yeah.
To be true to yourself. Don't do it because of the money or extra. No. Do it because you're just being true to yourself. And if you express yourself that way, great things can happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm really looking forward to the book. So you have all these outlets that you've developed to express yourself creatively. How do you manage those creative juices? Like they're flowing through this book. They're flowing through show houses. They're flowing through design of private homes. Like, how do you decide how to prioritize, I guess, letting those things out? How do you do that?
I think the prioritizing basically comes process of elimination. Who's ever asked for what first? That's where we kind of start the list as best as possible. But I'm a yes person. I can't say yes to everything, but if it feels right, I'm just going to keep saying yes. That's been my motto. You just keep saying yes.
From my sense of you, so little of your journey's behind you. You have so much to give still and so much to do. Any things you dream of at this point and this exciting, I mean, most people are like, all right, he's at the destination where I want to be, but I can tell you've got a lot going on and not just out there, I mean, in your mind. Anything you can share about what would you like to achieve? What are the things that you haven't yet gotten to, destinations? What are those things?
I think for me, so I just opened up a new antique shop last year, and it's called Mikel Welch Home at 200 Lex in New York. I am treating that like my baby. I really love sourcing old antiques and bringing them in and getting excited to see customers get excited about these pieces that I searched and found. And honestly, I'm hoping that will be how I retire. I just want to be this old little man who has a shop that's open from 11 to 1:30. And you better get there when it's open because he's grumpy and he's going to close that door. I want to be that man in that shop.
Well, you got a long way to grumpy. I can tell you that. You got to work on that because I don't think that's possible. I'm definitely going to check it out next time I'm in the city for sure.
Please do.
Well, Mikel Welch, this has been awesome. I could talk to you for the next 2 days. If you have room in the plane, I'll head down to the Today Show with you and get to sit in your audience and visit your store in 200 Lexington.
Yes,
thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I know you have a lot
going
going on in your world, to say the least, and we're grateful to have you today. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
From imposter syndrome to 8 show houses, a book, and a design career built on instinct, Mikel Welch isn't slowing down. If anything, he's widening the path for everyone behind him. And somewhere in the future, if you wander through New York City, you might just find a grumpy old man in a small antique shop, open from 11 to 1:30, still saying yes to the things that matter. I'm John Perchik. Thanks for listening. Join us each week as we explore the transformation shaping how we live, work, and gather.